Thanks for joining us. I think this is the 83rd episode of Tequila Tuesday. Hard to believe we're starting to get close to number 100. Thank you all for joining us, and for anybody who's not here, thanks for checking this out on demand. This topic is something that Kevin Dorsey and I spoke about, I think 2019, 2020, something like that, at the old sales loft conference called Rainmaker, which has evolved to a new name, which is forgettable and, a marketing blunder in my opinion. But Rainmaker is memorable. And Kevin and I worked on this thing together, and it was all about like this mindset and different tips and tricks to kind of focus on how to be great and, what things we could do that were in our control. And we kind of landed on all of this shit is just like locked in our head. And it's a lot more about how we feel about ourselves and little tips and tricks we can do to plan and prepare and hold ourselves accountable and all that kind of stuff, rather than, say this magic opener in your cold calls, or, do this magic research, that kind of thing. So Ryan and I were kind of talking about what we were going to do for this Tequila Tuesday. I haven't done this training in a few years now. Last time I did it was a few years ago at Surf and Sales. So I thought, well, let me maybe try to refresh how to be great by Monday, and that'd be a good topic for us. So I'm going to run through a few slides, talk about some stuff. As usual, raise your hand or take yourself off mute if you've got a question. I'm going to have a hard time navigating the chat and the screen share and all that kind of stuff. So Ryan will kind of pay attention to that and, kind of prompt me to shut up for a second and let somebody chime in. So we'll go through it, and curious to see what you all think, what feedback you have. Some of this stuff will probably be familiar. Some of it will be things that you should do and you haven't done. Hopefully it's a little bit of a kick in the butt to do some of that stuff. And maybe there's some stuff here that you never thought about really before, and it gives you a little bit of new perspective. So that's my goal, is just to kind of get us in this mindset of what we can do to perform a little better, get ourselves and keep ourselves in the right mindset to be great, and how maybe we can help each other do the same thing. So off we go. If I can learn how to navigate this. So here's the agenda. We're going to talk about mindset, the behavior involved, creating checklists or to-do lists for yourselves, and how to create and make your own luck. And then we'll get into some of the habits involved with being great. So, greatness mindset. The best of the best. Famous quote you've probably seen. I'm going to do today what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. All right? Oops. So the best of the best talk all the time about they enjoy the process. The last time I heard somebody talk about this that kind of caused me to pause was my nemesis of the last 20-something years, Tom Brady of the New England Patriots / Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And somebody was pestering him about, hey, you're 97 years old and you're still playing football. Like, how come you haven't retired? You've won enough, all that kind of thing. And he started talking about how he just loved the whole process of everything. Like, he loved getting in shape in the off season, and he loved going to training camp, and he loved going to practices, and he loved prepping for games and reviewing film and all that kind of thing. He loved that stuff much more, as he explained it, than even winning a Super Bowl or winning an MVP and all that kind of thing. So for us in our field, I think about, do I love talking about sales? Do I love talking about leadership? Do I love talking about entrepreneurship and building and starting businesses and that whole journey? Do I love that more than the end result maybe being X amount of money in my bank account, or selling this business for, you know, some 7-8 figure amount or something like that? Do I enjoy the ride more than the result? And the best of the best, the great people really enjoy the ride of everything. They want to be the best all the time. They're almost myopically focused on it. Probably about 15 minutes before we jumped on this meeting here, I was talking to Anish Lal. I don't know if any of you know who Anish is, but he was one of the original community managers at Rev Genius. He's done some good work with Outplay and works as sort of a business manager for, maybe I shouldn't out them. He works as a business manager for some of the famous people that you know, trainers, entrepreneurs, and whatnot. He helps them all out. So he was asking me for access to certain things of mine because I'm sharing some files with him, and I'm considering working with him. And so I sent him my password. And one of my passwords is 500K killer. Ryan's shaking his head because he's seen this before. And Nish was like, "What this fucking password is like hilarious. Like, what does this mean?" And I said, it's an old legacy password because 500 grand was my goal in terms of income back in the day, in terms of how much I would make in a year. And so I was so myopically obsessed with hitting this goal that I made it my fucking password in order to log into certain accounts. So every single day I'm having to type in 500K killer. And I'm just telling myself over and over all day, like, this is what you got to do, right? Yeah, good luck hacking all the accounts. I didn't tell you all of it. I just told you a fraction of it, okay? Plus, it's morphed and evolved over the years to many different things, all right? Point is, you become myopically focused on achieving this thing, and you find this most subtle, small ways to keep that goal and that greatness in mind. Could be something as silly and dorky as your password on email, social accounts, CRM login, whatever the hell. Okay. So we enjoy the practice and the buildup. We enjoy the process of it all more than the result. We think about being good or great all the time. It's inescapable. And it bleeds into other parts of our life, and we become myopically focused on it. So you have to think about, why do you care? Why do you want to try, right? It's not because you're trying to beat Jack or beat Ryan or beat Dean or Joel or Kelsey or Jacqueline or Amelia or anybody like that. You're trying to beat this old version of yourself. It could be a younger version of you. It could be a dumber version of you. It could be a really great version of you that showed up last year, last month, last week. But that's your opponent, more than it really is trying to beat somebody else. You're always striving to be your best self as somebody who's healthy, somebody who's maybe spiritually your best, financially your best, whatever those things are. So I want everybody to pause for a second here. I'm gonna give everybody a minute or two here. I really want you to focus for a second and write down 5 reasons why you really want to be great. So while you're writing these things down, 5 reasons why you really want to be great. We all know that we tend to get the things that we focus on. We know that we tend to achieve goals more if we write them down. Okay? So what I want you to do is write down the 5 reasons you want to be great. And I want you to put them somewhere that you're going to stare at them every day. Way, way, way back in the day, I taped this little piece of paper to my old 4-door, tiny red Toyota Corolla that I drove around the Bay Area, feeling like a pauper, wondering if it was going to break down. I taped it to my dashboard. So all day when I was driving in rush hour traffic, I was looking at these things. Then that evolved to taping it to my bathroom mirror when I moved to Danville, California. Now I have these reasons and these goals on the native iOS notepad on my computer. And that app is always open and it's staring me straight in the face. And I can't get away from it, even if I wanted to. So, what I'm trying to do is really focus myself and remind myself why I'm doing this, why I care, why I want to be the best version of myself. So, write down these 5 reasons why you really want to be great and be honest with yourself. It's okay if they're ego driven, selfish, whatever. They're your goals. You don't have to share them with nobody. All right. Be honest with yourself why you want to be great. What I think will help you get there, bigger, better, faster, stronger, is if some of these reasons align with being confident but humble and striking that balance between the two. Being hardworking yet balanced, meaning you don't work 24 hours a day. You know the difference and you listen to yourself and your body and you work hard, whatever that means, but you don't push yourself way beyond your limits, which I'm sure we've all done, myself included, a million times. But we hopefully are getting better at that and we listen to ourselves. It means you're unrelenting on the path and journey towards your goal. However, you're open and willing to change. It could be changing your idea. It could be getting a new perspective. It could be somebody saying, hey, Scott, I know you're really focused on going this direction to the left, but that's actually ripe with danger. You should go to the right, and here's why. Confident yet humble, hardworking yet balanced, unrelenting yet willing to change.
Scott.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious to get your perspective on this thing in particular. Not to put you on the spot, but to kind of put you on the spot. Like, I feel like, and we've known one another for a few years now. We've been friends for a few years now. I feel like you have an innate ability to strike that balance between confident and humble. And I'm just curious if you're willing to share anything about how you do that. Because I feel like that is a really difficult line to toe. Being human, Dale, yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, I don't know your perspective on that.
Yeah, I can try. Number one, I feel like, and a bunch of people here know me and interact with me on a regular basis. Part of that comes from knowing some of the things that I've already gone through and defeated and talking about them, right? So it's very open and out there that I, struggled for years to get somewhat healthy. It's open and out there that I'm not super healthy all the time, even now, right? So you can have a certain amount of confidence and start to feel like, you're impregnable and bulletproof and whatnot. But when life bashes you upside the head, it's really hard, in my experience at least, to be overconfident that borders on arrogance, because when that carpet gets ripped out from under you, you find out real quick, like, I don't care how cool you think you are, it's a wrap and everything can disappear at any given moment. That's part of it. Another part of it is I think I truly believe in the long term, like, I'm going to figure it out. But in the short term, I'm open and honest about my fears or concerns, and almost it can border on pessimism at times. Actually, I actually was texting with Dan Goodman, who I see in my screen here earlier today, and he sort of just said something how you doing, and I'm like, fucking struggling right now, dude. So I don't try to like pretend or put on airs that I'm somebody that I'm not. And you know, that requires a certain amount of openness and being willing to like expose who you really are. And I do all that kind of thing. And the last point that I'll make is if you've interacted with me, or been on the golf course with me, like some people, or a pickleball court or whatever, like I stay humble until somebody fucks with me. And then when you fuck with me, I flip a switch a little bit, and that super confident assassin like comes out. So it's almost like if I back into a corner and I'm backed into a corner, I'm like, I can find my way out now. Okay, now you've challenged me. Okay, now you're gonna see like a different version of me. I tend not to lead with that type of I'm feeling like I want to use the word aggression, but um, I don't tend to lead with that kind of thing. I hold that kind of thing back until I'm pushed to a point where, okay, now you're about to find out like what I might be made of, right? So those are some of the things I think about, Ryan, as I try to strike that balance. Hope I answered that okay.
You did. You did. The thing that like really sticks out for me, which I've never thought about, but I realize that I'm kind of the same way. The idea of knowing long term, having like this deep seated confidence in yourself long term that you're going to fucking figure it out by hook or by crook, however you need to do it, you'll figure it out. But knowing in the shorter term, midterm, like you can be open and vulnerable about the stuff that you don't know or the stuff that you are trying to figure out. That resonates really strongly. And I think that's something I'm going to think about.
Yeah.
That was great.
I've used the phrase before that I'm a short-term pessimist and a long-term optimist. Meaning, if you talk to me on any given day, I'm like, the sky is fucking falling. I have no business, you know. But then if we really got serious and you push me, I'll be like, I'm gonna figure it out. It's gonna be okay. Like I'm not gonna lose. So that might be my own delusion, right? But that has worked for me, you know, so far to express my vulnerabilities. But if actually push comes to shove and challenge, like, no, I got this. I'm gonna figure it out. Uh-oh. Hold on as I figure out how to use PowerPoint. There we go. Accountability versus responsibility and trying to articulate the differences between the two. Okay. This is where some of the greatness mentality comes from. Accountability starts with you. The buck stops with you kind of mentality. I actually wrote something today about how I used to work for a tyrant, essentially, which some of you can probably relate to. I'll call somebody out earlier. One of the first people I was talking to, yes, didn't say that, but I know that's what they were talking about. One of the things I wrote about was I used to work for this tyrant, and I spent a long time believing that like they were the problem. Actually, the problem was me. I was a pushover. I was a doormat. I allowed myself to be taken advantage of. I allowed myself to stay in an unhealthy environment. It took me a long time, longer than I would have liked, to get up the courage to like stand up for myself and put in boundaries and extract myself from that problem. So that's accountability to me. It starts and ends with me, and only then does it go to others. And if I can't hold myself completely accountable, I find other people to help me. Manager, perhaps, if you're lucky. Colleagues, perhaps, if you're lucky. Mentor, you can find, whether it's internally or externally. Friends, family members. And it all comes back to this question again of like, what does my best self look like? And why do I really want to be my best self? And then there's the responsibility. What are the things that I need to do in order to help hold myself accountable? I write down these goals. I believe in sharing goals once you establish them. That helps keep you like accountable. And you check in. You can check in at the start of every day, start of every week, every month, whatever the cadence is with mentors, managers. And you figure out, what am I doing today to achieve the results that I want? And the scary part is sometimes the answer is fuck all. Truly. Sometimes the answer is, wow, I just did like 7 hours worth of admin work today. None of that stuff is really progressing me towards being my best self. None of it is helping me be great. And that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Did I do the things necessary today to be as successful as I want to be? And if the answer is no, where did I go wrong? Where did I get distracted? What could I have done differently? You try to ask yourself these questions every single day. You can write them down. It's a good way, whether it's journaling or whatever. If you have somebody, a partner or close friend that you can talk to about these things every single day, that helps as well. You have accountability partners. You've probably heard that expression before. It's pretty common in people who work out, for example. These are the things that I want you to be thinking about. Next week's Tequila Tuesday will be somebody smart teaching Scott how to use PowerPoint, so all of these things don't show up line by line and it just comes all at once. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, Dan. I knew you'd appreciate that one. Now we get into the work-life integration rather than work-life balance. Okay. Everything that we do outside of work, in my opinion, impacts our life at work. Who your partner is, what are the things that you focus on, give your energy to? What are the things you do to get rid of stress? What are the things you do to simplify your life, such as get rid of commute times, free up more time for yourself? Who your friends are. You can't change who your family is, but you can certainly alter how much time you spend talking to or being around family members that don't lift you up and serve you in a particular way. They detract you and take your energy rather than give you energy. They're not holding you. If they're not making you better, then perhaps they're holding you back. Toxicity. Not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's important. I've gone so far as to move thousands of miles away from a situation that nicely done, Connor. It made me lose my thought midstream. I've moved thousands of miles away to get away from situations that were toxic for me, to give myself some space. I've adjusted habits. Obvious habits could be, well, I'm going out partying too much. I'm not practicing enough, working on my craft. I'm just sitting here dreaming. I'm not doing anything. These are things that you can fix. And I don't think that we spend enough time focusing on these kind of things, talking about them, spelling them out, really trying to hack your life in a way. So pause for a second. I want you to think about 3 things that are impacting your life that you could try to hack and simplify. What are those things? What are 3 things going on outside of your work life that, if you solved or improved, would help your work life? And write those 3 things down. Part of the goal here is to believe that this is possible, to believe that you can improve upon this stuff. Next big point. and you're all doing this, in my opinion, already. But this is a good reminder in case you don't feel like you have enough. Go get coaching. Get help from every corner that you can find it. We certainly don't know it all. We never will. We can aspire to know it all, but we should stop pretending that we have everything all mastered. We've all probably heard and seen people say, like, you know, everybody's winging it. If you've ever been a parent and you ask another parent for advice, often the answer is, fuck if I know what I'm doing. I'm just doing my best, right? If you talk to an entrepreneur, they often say, fuck if I know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing my best. No need to put on airs that we know everything about everything. We don't. I was thinking about this earlier. I'm struggling to figure out another industry or craft where people can claim mastery of their skill set after a year or two and just be like, oh, Brent is a natural salesperson. He's got it all figured out. He's been an SDR for 9 months. For some reason in our industry, we do that kind of shit. That would never happen in other crafts, right? A couple things that I want to point out. You can learn a lot just by talking to your prospects. There's a lot of times way back in the day when I was trying to figure out how to sell, I wasn't going to close a deal. I wasn't going to create a demo or even an opportunity. But I was having a conversation with some prospects, and I would just start asking them questions about their industry, about their business, about, you know, what would compel them to adjust their strategy, things like that. I really treated all those calls as a learning opportunity. So I didn't even care about closing the deal or progressing these things. I'm sure my manager cared, but I didn't care. I was just trying to learn. Learn from these prospects, learn from these calls, learn from your mentors. Surrounding ourselves with people who can teach us and help us grow is far more important than what company, what fancy FANG title, X this, X Google, S Facebook this. And if you don't have these opportunities at your current company, you have got to go find somebody, many people, and you're all doing this again by the fact that you're even in this community. You're saying, what is around me is not enough. I know there's more out there. I'm pushing to go get it and absorb some of that. And the last point I'll make is you actually can coach yourself. How many of you actually sit and listen to your own calls every single day? I bet it's not very many, if anybody. Imagine if we did, though. Imagine if we had 90 days worth of calls teed up, and we can listen to the last 90 days of Kelsey's prospecting calls and the last 90 days of Connor's demos and the last 90 days of Dale's leadership meetings and the last 90 days of Keith's upsell calls. Don't you think that you would learn something if you did that? I do. And taking the feedback and turning a critical eye on yourself is something that, for whatever reason, we don't want to do. Why is it easier for us to get feedback from somebody else than to get feedback to ourselves? So I would encourage you to listen to your own calls and try to solve some of these things yourself. Funny story, true story. Look at this message that Kevin Dorsey sent me February 28th, 2017. It says, hey, Scott, congrats on kicking things off in Austin. Sounds like you're about to scale up another team. What he's talking about is I made an announcement on LinkedIn that I relocated my sales team at Qualia from San Francisco to Austin. He's saying, wondering if you'd be open to hopping on a quick call sometime next week for 2 reasons. I'm in the process of scaling my first team past 50. Would love to pick your brain on some best practices and struggles. A couple things are interesting here. Kevin and I had no relationship really prior to this message. I actually don't. He says that we knew of each other on LinkedIn prior to this. I don't really remember that. We certainly had never talked or anything like that. Okay. And he had a head of sales job at, I think, a company called Snack Nation back then, was the company he was trying to grow. I think that was the one. You should all send him a note telling him how guilty he is of sending a pick my brain message, though. Right? There's evidence that he did it. But I took that call and I agreed to that because you just never know. You never know who you can learn from. So even though he was seeking out mentorship, I was like, maybe this guy can help me. Maybe I can help him. I have no idea. A few years later, we're close friends. A few years later, he moves to Austin. We're neighbors. Now we hang out all over the world. We were in Costa Rica together a couple weeks ago. So even somebody like that, who's, at a really high level, is still reaching out saying, hey, I could use some help from somebody who's, done something like this before. Humbled himself in a way. And in some sense, I humbled myself, I think. I was open to the fact that maybe I can learn something from this person. I don't know it all. I'm not too good to be like, well, I don't need a brain picking session, right? I'm like, all right, sure, let's see what happens. They're annoying. I don't know how to turn those off, or I would. Making and breaking. Figure out what habits you're trying to break and what new habits you're trying to make. And success and failure can become a habit. You hear all the time in sports about like this team is trying to learn how to win. They're close, and then something goes wrong and they can't quite, close the game out or close the series out or something like that. Right? You have to practice these things. There's 2 good books. Everybody knows of Atomic Habits. But there's a better, less popular book, in my opinion, called The Power of Habit, which is really like scientific and breaks down like the brain science of everything and how you can build these habits for yourself or break habits that are unhealthy. One of the things that you need to do that we do a lousy job of, in my opinion, is rewarding ourselves for the things that we do right. We're very good, I think, as salespeople and leaders at making these big, huge goals for ourselves. We kind of suck at seeing progress. I know I do. I struggle with it even now. And one of the only ways for me to feel like I'm making progress is to create these micro goals, these little tiny baby steps that are really easy to attain. And I create lots of them. I did this, I earn myself a pat on the back. Do this, pat on the back. If I get too focused on the big outcome only, I struggle to see the progress, which discourages me. If I get discouraged, I feel less motivated to keep going after it. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. I might be angry or whatever. And I end up starting to focus on the result too much, the end result. And I don't focus enough on the process. When I'm focused on these little micro goals, it's way easier for me to be like, hey, as long as I keep pitching this the right way, the right tone, the right number, it's going to happen. As long as I keep, creating this many opportunities and running this many demos and whatnot, discovery calls, things are going to go my way. As long as I assess myself at the end of every opportunity and every call, did I do these things the right way? Results will come, as opposed to, did I actually close this thing? So breaking down these big goals you have into super small micro goals, I think, helps you form positive habits that are easy for you to latch onto and stick with. But here's a daily checklist for you. Feel free to steal this daily greatness checklist. 15 minutes of gratitude visualization. This could be a dog walk. This could be in the bath or in the shower. This could be while you're swimming or running or whatever. You don't have to sit there on the floor cross-legged and meditate for 15 minutes, which I cannot do. But I do spend a lot of time thinking about these things. I do spend time thinking about how lucky I am that I'm even able to sit here in front of you, be healthy enough to, run businesses, run events, travel certain places. I've come a long way. I do spend time thinking about what is the optimal outcome. I talked about this at Golf and Sales the other day. Like, what do we want to get out of this? What's our optimal outcome? And I want you to think about that and see it happen. There's a lot of people who are swimmers or who are runners. My son is in track. My older son was in cross country. And they used to talk to them all the time about, like, visualize the perfect race. And what does it look like? And just kind of see it happen. And when I started writing cold call scripts and demo scripts and all this kind of stuff in sales, where I always started was, what does the perfect call sound like? And I had to visualize that. And then I would write it on down. I think it's super important for us to get unstuck, keep moving, healthy body, healthy mind, try to find a way to move every single day. It gets harder as you get older. It gets harder as you get broken. Right now I likely have torn meniscus in my knee again for like the 6th time in knee surgery. I have a partially torn rotator cuff. I have a partially torn bicep tendon. That doesn't even count all of the other stuff. I'm 45 years old. Doesn't even count all the other stuff that I'm dealing with. It is hard to find ways to move or be active for 30 minutes a day. Can I go run? Nope. Can I go lift weights? Nope. Can I go play soccer the way I used to? Nope. Can I go play tennis the way I used to? Nope. Can I surf right now? Nope. So it can just look like something different. To me, it could look like walking my dog. It could look like stretching. Anything can look like fresh air, frankly. Jump in the pool, hang out in the hot tub. Just doing something to get out of my routine to shake things up, make me feel like I'm moving. Prepping for each day. Who am I calling? What am I doing? I got away from this recently. And I got a kick in the pants from somebody a couple days ago to start writing these things down again and prepping for the day. You could do that at night, prep for the next day. You could do it when you first wake up, prep for this day, create little lists for yourself. Working in sprints. There's not very many super successful people that I know who are great, who work like 8-9 hours straight. What they end up doing is they lock in for a certain period of time. And then they take a little bit of time to go do something for themselves, take care of a personal life thing, right? Think about working in sprints. How can I avoid distraction for 50 minutes, then deal with whatever else is going on for 10? This scarcity mindset of, like, I have nothing, so I need to build more. This has helped me be super successful. one of the things that people get sucked into this trap of is they're like, oh, I got 3 or 4 opportunities, like 1 or 2 of these things are going to close, so I'm okay. I always assume that nothing I have is going to close. Nothing. So I'm always like, oh, okay, cool. You got 10 opportunities, Scott. I better find 10 more. Because if I have that many, hopefully one of them will just like trip over the line and fall, even if I fuck it up. You try to find the way to have this like healthy version of paranoia that pushes you forward to like keep building, keep trying to grow the pipeline, keep trying to be more effective at what we do. And the last thing I think in this daily greatness checklist is, what did you do to make somebody else better today? One of the reasons that we write the things we write, we create the content the way we do, I think is because we're trying to remind ourselves of what's worked for us. Every time I read somebody's content online, I'm thinking, this person's talking to themselves. That's what they're thinking about, right? That's how I feel, at least. Every time I write something, I'm like, fuck, Scott, you got away from that. Put it out there, right? So who did you help get better today? Through sharing, through creating, through coaching, through mentoring, through uplifting, whatever. One of the best ways to learn something or relearn something is to coach somebody else on that thing. Especially people who've never done this particular thing before. It forces you to simplify and get total clarity in your explanations of stuff, right? So this is the daily greatness checklist. Now we're going to move to the weekly one. How many times did we practice this week? I'm a big proponent of practice. I just wrote about it today, I think, actually. I told this story of, I didn't go into detail, but if you have kids who play sports, you're probably aware of these like Team Snap, Game Changer apps, band apps, Sports U app, all this kind of stuff. And there's all these parents who will be like, little Johnny won't be at practice today because of XYZ reason, right? Well, I get these ones that are like, little Johnny won't be at practice today because he has homework. And today I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, what do you mean? You made a commitment to participate in this particular activity, and in doing so, you're saying, I will find a way to handle all the rest of my business. Right? The more times you practice, the better you're going to get. I think at least 3 times a week, minimum, you should be practicing your calls, your demos, your objection handling. You could be re-looking at how you handle interactions, how you do your networking. All this stuff is practice. Every week, you should look at your metrics, whatever those key performance indicators are for what your role is, reminding yourself of like where you're at towards your goal and why do you want to get there in the first place. My favorite metric of all time, some of you have heard me talk about this before, is pacing. What am I pacing to my number? I used to be able to tell you at any given day, okay, it's the 14th of the month. We're at this particular amount of revenue. We're pacing to this particular number by the end of the month, which puts us at X% to goal. I track this all the time with myself, my own revenue numbers. Okay, I did 102,000 this month. That's 1.1 million pace, 1.2 million pace. I know that $83,333.33 a month is $1 million of income. I know that 166 is $2 million of income. Pacing is something that I obsess over. So in your weekly greatness checklist, look at your KPIs and your metrics and figure out, if I was doing this every single day or every week or every month, what would I end up with? And is that aligned with what my goal was? Try to reach out to 5 mentors a week. Listen to 5 of your calls a week. These things are not actually hard. I promise you talk to probably more than 5 people a week that you would consider a mentor, one way or another. If you don't, then you should push yourself to get out of your comfort zone a little bit more, because it's not that hard. Listening to 5 of your calls, that's a painful exercise, but you got to do it. Every single week, that's 1 call a day. Come on. I know you can do that. Now here comes the monthly checklist. Remember I talked about these big goals and being micro goals? Now you got me on daily, weekly. Now we're up to monthly. We're building up, right? Take 1 full day to really think about solving a problem. I'll pick on Amelia for a second. One of Amelia's problems was she's trying to figure out how to get her company to have a better partner selling ecosystem, a better referral system. How do we engage our advisors, right? How do we get access to their network? How do they help us with deal flow and branding and influence and all this kind of stuff? That's a big problem. That's not something super simple. She probably thinks about it all the time. Try to find ways to give yourself the space and clarity to just think about solving a problem. Try to unplug every month for at least 48 hours. That's 2 days a month where you kind of shut it down. Some of us are a lot better at this than others. I'm not very awesome at it, to be honest with you, unless I'm doing certain things. So I'm trying to work on this, and I'm trying to engage in these activities more, so I shut myself down a little bit more. We get more creative sometimes during those moments, rather than pushing through when we pull back a little bit. Get some feedback every single month from leadership, manager, what have you. Cheat the system rather than being like a formal thing. Maybe you can go to, have a drink, go to lunch, breakfast, whatever. Create it, even if it's not happening. Push to make it happen by creating it. Try to read more. Think about what you consume every day. And if you're not good at reading, maybe just listen. Swap a paperback for an audiobook or a podcast or something like that. Absorb information through osmosis. Way back in the day, I used to commute from Oakland, California to Pleasant Hill, California with 2 other guys on the sales team. And we had 1 Brian Tracy sales CD. 1 CD, that's it. That fucking thing played every day in the background for God knows how long. Just like imprinting itself through osmosis into all of our brains. It helps. Obvious yet complicated monthly greatness checklist bullet point. Try to solve 1 non-work related issue a month. Getting better as people helps us get better at sales, helps us get better at leadership, helps us get better at business. The more bullshit and baggage we clear away in our private lives, the more free we are and creative we are to get things done in our professional lives. We push a lot of this bullshit in our personal lives to the side in a way because we say, I have to work. I have to do this. But while we're working and while we're doing this professional thing, this personal thing is eating away at us inside and dragging us on down. Where if we did the opposite and we flipped and said, I can't deal with this work thing right now because I got to solve this personal thing right quick, we would actually perform better. And we all suck at doing that historically. But if you just pick one semi big personal issue, you watch how much better you become in the professional world at solving these kind of problems. Another way to get better: build all the different functions yourself. Ryan loves this meme. It's his favorite meme. He's going to steal it. It's a great way to keep you in the greatness mindset, because you're sort of saying, like, I'm okay where I am right now, but I want more. You start thinking about solving different problems. You start thinking about who I can help. You start thinking about how can I monetize this. You start thinking about how can I service this people better? How can I lead better? How can I try this? That requires you to be bold and brave. That requires you to accept that you might fail at something potentially, right? And it gets harder to do as you get older. You get more and more responsibilities. Physically, you might get, slowed. You might have kids that take time away that you can't pour all this energy and effort into, okay? Easiest side hustle there is your brand. We all know that at this point in time. You can parlay your brand into paychecks. Easy. So you should think about, like, how can I allocate time to some type of side gig, whatever that gig is. And it will help you get better at your regular job. You'll start to look at your regular job differently. You start to look at it from an entire business ecosystem perspective rather than just SDR perspective, right? It helps you sharpen the sword a little bit. Back to the very beginning, when I was talking about loving the process, you got to be a student of the game. There's a lot of people who get into sales or sales leadership or business, and it's a paycheck, it's a job, it's whatever. They don't really love it. Well, you're never really going to become great, I don't think, unless you study the game. You read about things, books, articles, you listen to things, podcasts, webinars, trainings. You focus on motivation, inspiration, accountability, and you study the greats. You spend time around people that are where you want to be or who are going where you want to go. You go to different events, conferences, micro conferences, whatnot. So you're around like-minded people. Those things are accelerants on your journey towards greatness. One way to kind of align yourself and gear yourself to mentors is, like, what can you do to help them that in the long run helps you get where you want to go? Me and Ryan's whole relationship started because he sent me a note that was like, hey, how can I help you? Like, is there something that you need help working on? And I had something, and then bang, now we've, created a business together. We created a course together. We wrote a book together. But it all started because he selflessly was just like, I want to learn. Like, I wonder what this guy, can share. And he was like, rather than me saying, hey, I want to learn from you, he was like, how can I help you? And that kickstarted the whole thing. Easy way to align yourself with mentors and learn again through osmosis and potentially even partnering with people. Being a student of the game. Fancy little phrase, practice makes profits. Think about certain things that you might be able to do that go above and beyond what's asked of you or what other people are willing to do. It's funny how adverse we are to practicing our craft right now, but when we were young, if anybody played sports in high school or whatever, it's like, how many thousands of hours did you log on the track or the basketball court or tennis court or whatever? Like, we were seriously willing to log all of these hours so our JV fucking basketball team might win. And so I might play 30% of the game instead of 20% of the game. And I drag myself to JV basketball practice at 6 a.m. trying to get better. But I'm not really interested in putting that amount of time into the thing that might feed my family, provide security for me, grow my business, make a big paycheck. We've got it like completely ass backwards. And greatness and mastery can be found through putting in the right amount of practice, the right type of practice with the right type of people. So figure out what you can do to go above and beyond what other people are doing, what you're doing right now to push yourself to be great. One thing that I think we all would have loved to get better at early in our career and need to stay vigilant on is what to look for in opportunities. There's a lot of people who we look at and say, oh, this person's really great. They actually just picked the right fucking horse. So really the greatness that they possess lies in they got lucky. But they did something right to get lucky. They didn't just fully stumble into it. They asked the right questions. They figured out, who do I want to go work for? Who have you taught that went on to become such and such that I want to become? Right? Questions about the company, not just their culture, but their vision, their product, the way they think about servicing, supporting clients and the team. Questions about our opportunity there, the roles, the career path, about equity or lack thereof, learning all the things to ask that people don't share with you. You need to dig into all these kind of things and get better at finding opportunities. I had a conversation a couple years ago, I think during COVID, with a very famous, arguably most famous person on LinkedIn right now. About it. And this person said, hey, Scott, how much equity do you have in your VP of sales gig? And I told him, and he lost his mind because he had about a fraction of the amount I had. And they told me what they had, and I couldn't believe how little it was. I couldn't believe it. And I remember saying, how did you get yourself into this position? Like, what the fuck happened? You were there early, you've done well. And they said, well, I didn't know. I didn't know what I need. I fucked up. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't dig into these different things. They basically got taken advantage of. Well, I think every year that goes by as we have access to more and more information that's out there and different people who are willing to share this kind of stuff, that as a reason or an excuse has got to go away. It can't be that way anymore. We have to learn how to ask all these right questions and create a kind of a plan of action. You can even follow a script. This is how I'm going to go through the interview process. These are the questions that I'm going to ask about the current leadership. These are the questions that I'm going to ask about people who've progressed there in their career. These are the questions that I'm going to ask about the company and the direction and the retention and how good the product is and the release cadence of new features, right? Getting good at looking for an opportunity and asking those questions is a hack to having a greatness mindset. Some of the politics and unspoken rules, some of these things you've probably heard of before, but being respected for how you go about your business has just as much of an impact on your career as results. Big shocker, I'm sure. But there are people out there who have a fraction, or excuse me, there are people out there who have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times more of a following than you do who make a fraction of what you do. There are people out there who are more popular that don't necessarily have the respect. If you focus on earning the respect of your peers by doing things the right way, by always being there, being helpful, being supportive, that can have a huge net positive result toward the trajectory of you becoming great. You don't have to be liked by everybody. I certainly am not liked by everybody. I tell people a lot of things they don't necessarily want to hear. I'm abrasive sometimes. But I think and I hope that I've earned a lot of respect because people know they're going to get a response from me. They know they're going to hear something that's real and true. I'm not going to sugarcoat certain things. And you can become the power of your network. Think of it this way. I showed you that screenshot from me and KD. I think of it as you never know who you can help, and you never know who is going to be able to help you. So stay open to different connection requests, different DMs that come through, different messages of brain picking and things like this that seem kind of, annoying on the surface level. Start to establish purposeful relationships with the right people. You probably know who those right people are in your industry or in your field. Sometimes we shy away from those things. We don't think that they're going to care. We think that they're above us or whatever. You'd be surprised how many people are open to, creating a relationship, figuring out, hey, maybe there's a way we can help each other. You make their life easier and better, then your life becomes easier and better. And learn when to fight and kind of dig your heels in versus bend and kind of go with the flow. There's certain things that are just not worth your time and energy to dig your heels into and fight. And there's certain things that are. No reason to go fight this battle with my CEO because I need to save up my strength and political capital for this other battle that is twice as big that I need to go have. Some of these politics that you have to think about when you work at a growing company or an established company, then it might not be the most pleasant things to think about, but they are things that you have to think about and spend some time on. So recap for you, greatness is a decision. You can make it. Starts with the self-confidence and belief in yourself. It's a consistent series of small decisions and attainment of micro goals. It comes from putting yourself in the right environment with the right people proactively rather than waiting for these things to happen. And it's habit forming, and it's something that you have to work on. Questions, comments, emotional outbursts? I've paid attention to nothing in the chat, Ryan, so you're in charge.
Connor had one specific question, and actually Sanjay has a question too. Sanjay, I'll take you off mute, and then Connor can jump on.
Hey, Scott. Hey, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is just around what you said about the scarcity mindset, because I've been trying to lean into more of like an abundance mindset whether, you know, there's money out there, there's business out there, but could you maybe talk a little bit deeper how you use the scarcity mindset,
Yeah.
especially when you were driving around in your beater and you were far from where you wanted to be, but you use that mindset to get you closer to it. The reason why I ask this question is because sometimes when I think about scarcity, I feel like I get stuck in that mindset where it's like, I don't have this, I don't have that. So if you can help me out.
Well, I think it goes a little bit back to what I was saying, and I'm not sure if you were here the whole time or not, but about this like short-term pessimist but long-term optimist type mentality. So in the short term, I have the scarcity mindset. I have a scarcity mindset of I look at my pipeline and no matter what is in there, I'm like, I don't have enough. I got to find more. My abundance mindset is I know I'm going to win long term. I know I'm going to close some of these things. I know it's going to be okay. There's a lot of things out there. So I tend to vacillate between the two pretty seamlessly, right? And I think of it in terms of immediate right in front of me. I never have enough. I got to keep pushing. Long term, I got this. I'm going to be okay. I know where I'm going. Everything is coming my way. That's the difference for me.
Scott, can I just pepper in one thing? There's like baby music happening in the background. But Sanjay, the other way that I think about this is like what serves you. And I think Scott is using scarcity in that regard to help like motivate him and keep him pushing forward. And I think folks that are successful, I mentioned this in the chat earlier, always have a little bit of that paranoia, or it's always like, what have you done for me lately? I was talking to somebody yesterday about this who's a wildly successful sales leader and was a wildly successful individual contributor. This person's putting more pressure on themselves than their company is. And like there's what have you done for me lately, I think is a problem in startups, startup culture. It's definitely a problem in sales because of the pressure that it comes with it. At the same time, most folks that are high achievers and really want to be great and to make material waves in their lives are asking themselves that question, even to a greater extent than their company. So I think that's Scott's using scarcity mindset in service of himself and getting better. But I also just think about like outside of that, how does it serve you? It doesn't. It literally does nothing to help you, and it only drains your energy. Meanwhile, I was skeptical about a lot of sort of these mindset shifts for a long time. But when I started looking for opportunity, because I knew that abundance mentality is a real and mindset is a real fucking thing, magically this stuff started showing up, and things where you never would know that there's opportunity. If you're looking for it, you'll fucking find it. And like, I will die on that hill because I've lived this. But just know that if you're thinking about everything in terms of what you don't have, what's stopping you, what's holding you back, if it's not in service of trying to fix a problem or motivate you to work harder or figure something out, it's not doing anything for you. Anything. It's just my 2 cents.
Any other questions for me?
Yeah, I had one actual real question, not just comments that I personally find funny in the chat. Unlike most people here, you know, I'm sure everyone has their life figured out and only has one goal. I have like, I don't know, 7 to 12 semi-pressing goals. So as far as the daily, weekly, monthly, annually, whatever, do you need to apply that framework? Because one of them, where I thought about was practice 20 to 30 minutes 3 times a week. So if I have like 7 goals, am I doing that 7-fold? Do you recommend doing that in succession? Do you just priority rack and stack? How do you weave this methodology in when you're trying to tackle a few different things?
I'm very much like a priority rack and stack type person. I think that anybody is going to fail trying to do 7 different things all at once, starting at the same time. So how I've always gone about it is I try to get really great at the one thing. And when I've got that where I feel like I know what I'm doing very competently here, now I add the second thing. And I practice that, get really good at that. Make sure that both of those things are still firing and the first one didn't slip. And if I can handle two things that are going really great, then I add a third.
Copy.
And now I practice that one. I try to get really good at that one. Can I handle three things at once? Or does number two or number one drop? If I can handle all three things at the same time, and I'm doing great, awesome. Can I handle the fourth? So I do the rack and stack like brick by brick.
Yep.
I make sure I'm great at one thing before I add the next thing.
Then by the time number 5's there, 1 through 3 should be ingrained.
1, 2, 3, and 4 should be on somewhat of a
Standby.
relative autopilot kind of situation.
Cool. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Anything else, gang? No. All right. Ryan, you want to leave us with any update?
Yeah.
Update everybody on what else is coming this week.
So Thursday, the Work Life event is happening at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Read about it in the description, read about it in the general channel. Y'all show up to this thing. It's going to be actually very much in line with a lot of the stuff we're talking about now. So check that out. And then Friday Morning Live, Scott's back this week. We had a blast last week, and we had a really awesome dialogue and back and forth, a lot of really great questions. So that's coming up on Friday. I'm going to be releasing a couple other challenges as well. And as always, your feedback is incredibly valued. So please don't hesitate to shoot Scott and I a line. But yeah, that's it.
All right, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time with us today. Good luck out
Thank
there.
you guys. See you soon.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.